Hello everyone, welcome to Hidden Affairs. Here we share real-life stories of love, betrayal, and the secrets people try to keep. Please do subscribe, and share your thoughts about the story in the comment section. Now let's enjoy the story. I'm Ben, 36, and until recently, I thought my marriage was as stable as they come. My wife, Lisa, 34, and I had been together for 11 years, married for 9. We don't have kids, but we've built a pretty decent life together. Nice house in the suburbs, good jobs, 2 dogs we spoil like children. From the outside, I'd imagine we looked like one of those Instagram perfect couples. Inside, things were quieter, more routine, but I thought that was normal. Turns out, I didn't know the half of it. It all started 2 months ago. Lisa had been restless for a while, spending more time at the gym, going out with friends, scrolling her phone late into the night. At first, I chalked it up to the normal ebb and flow of life. I mean, everyone needs their own space, right? But then she started making comments during our evenings together. Things like, "Don't you ever feel like we've lost the spark?" Or, "Sometimes I wonder if we've grown too comfortable." Comfortable? Sure. But wasn't that the whole point of being with someone for the long haul? To have that kind of stability? I didn't take it too seriously until the night she hit me with what she probably thought was a revolutionary idea. We were sitting on the couch, some reality TV show playing in the background, when she turned to me with this almost gleeful expression. Then she started, her voice careful, like she was testing the waters. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I feel like we've both settled into these roles, And maybe we should try opening things up." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. Opening things up? Like moving? New hobbies? No, she smiled nervously. I mean our relationship. "I think we should try an open marriage." For a moment, I thought she was joking. But the way her eyes darted to the floor, the way her hands twisted in her lap, she was serious. My first instinct was anger, but it was like my brain short-circuited before I could find the words. Instead, I just sat there, staring at her like she'd grown a second head. "Why?" was all I managed to get out. "It's not about you," she rushed to say. "I love you, Ben. I feel like I've been missing something, and I think exploring this could be good for both of us. Like breathing new life into our marriage." The more she talked, the more surreal it felt. She painted this rosy picture of how it could work. Clear rules, honesty, and mutual exploration. She said it would make us closer. But all I could hear was that she wanted to sleep with someone else and wanted me to co-sign it. I don't know how I kept my cool that night. Maybe it was shock. Maybe a part of me was afraid of pushing her further away. Whatever the reason, I told her I'd think about it, and I did. For weeks, I combed through every conversation, every subtle change in her behavior, wondering how we'd gotten to this point. Had I been too complacent? Too predictable? Or was this just her excuse for something that had already started? By the time I finally gave her my answer, I felt like a man on autopilot. I told her, "Fine, if this is what you think we need, let's give it a try." Her smile could have lit up the room. "Thank you," she said, throwing her arms around me. "You won't regret this." But regret was all I felt. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of contradictions. Lisa was suddenly happier, more affectionate, even giddy at times. She started dressing up more, texting late at night, and going out with the girls more often. Meanwhile, I felt like I was on a slow descent into madness. Every time her phone buzzed, every time she came home a little too late, my imagination ran wild. Who was she with? Was it someone I knew? Still, I played my part. I smiled, nodded, and pretended this was some grand experiment we were navigating together. I even made a point to meet her freedom halfway, trying out dating apps and chatting with a few women, but nothing came of it. I wasn't interested in finding someone new. I wanted to fix what was broken, not make it worse. One night, Lisa came home after midnight, her makeup smudged and her smile too wide. As she slipped into bed beside me, I realized I couldn't keep up the charade much longer. Something had to give, but before it did, I needed to make sure I wasn't the fool she clearly thought I was. I started paying closer attention, little things like her phone habits, the way she talked about her gym friends the night she was working late. Slowly, the pieces came together. She wasn't just testing the waters. She was already swimming in them, and that's when I knew. If she wanted an open marriage, she was going to get one, but not the way she expected. After agreeing to Lisa's open marriage idea, I was determined to keep a low profile while figuring out what she was really up to. It wasn't just curiosity, it was survival. I needed to know how deep the rabbit hole went before I decided my next move. The first clue came from her phone. She was careful, but not as careful as she thought. One night, after she fell asleep, I unlocked it. Her passcode hadn't changed, another sign she underestimated me. Most of the juicy stuff was gone. No incriminating text, no obvious dating apps. But one name kept popping up in her WhatsApp history. Josh. Josh was a guy from her gym, someone I vaguely remembered meeting at one of their Christmas parties. He was in his early 30s, tall, tattooed, the type who looked like he lived in a gym. They'd exchanged dozens of messages, mostly innocent on the surface, but with undertones that were impossible to miss. Things like, "You looked amazing today," or "I can't wait for Friday." I scrolled further and found selfies of her in gym clothes, tight leggings, a sports bra, angles that were meant to entice. I felt a hot wave of anger, but shoved it down. This wasn't proof of anything, I told myself. Not yet. The next step was surveillance. I hated myself for it, but I started tracking her movements. Her routine was predictable. Work, gym, occasional nights out with friends. But on Fridays, the timeline didn't add up. She'd leave work at 5, go to the gym, and wouldn't get home until after 10. I drove by the gym one Friday, parking in a spot where I could see the entrance. She never showed up. Instead, she met Josh at a trendy downtown bar. They didn't stay long, just enough time for drinks before leaving together in his car. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding as I tailed them to his apartment. They disappeared inside, and I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to decide whether to storm in or wait. I waited, my phone buzzing with Lisa's messages, working late. "Don't wait up." By the time she came home that night, her hair freshly brushed and her excuses ready, I made up my mind. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd play smarter. The following week, I started putting her idea of an open marriage to the test. It was almost comical how easy it was. While Lisa was distracted with Josh, I set up a dating profile and started chatting with a couple of women. Unlike her, I wasn't looking for love or validation, just willing participants. And I found them. The first was Emily, 28, an event planner with a razor-sharp wit and a taste for mischief. We met for drinks, and within an hour, she was leaning across the table, her hand on my arm, asking if I wanted to take this somewhere more private. I did. The second was Kara, 31, a free spirit who said she was intrigued by the honesty of my open marriage. She had an energy that was contagious, and by the end of our second date, she invited me back to her place. I went. I didn't tell Lisa about either encounter. I didn't know her that anymore. The turning point came one Friday night when Lisa had her usual gym session. I texted Emily and Kara separately, inviting them over for drinks. It was risky, but I didn't care. They both showed up, and to my surprise, they hit it off. We laughed, drank, and eventually, one thing led to another. As the night unfolded, I felt a strange mix of emotions, exhilaration, guilt, but most of all, I felt free. For the first time in months, I wasn't the one sitting at home, waiting, wondering. I was taking back control. When Lisa walked through the door at midnight, her smile vanished the moment she saw us in the living room. Emily and Kara were draped on either side of me, their laughter silencing instantly as they turned to look at her. "Ben?" Lisa's voice cracked, her eyes darting between the three of us. I didn't flinch. Oh, hey, I said casually. "Didn't expect you back so soon." Her face flushed, and for the first time in our marriage, she looked genuinely lost for words. I didn't offer any explanation, and she didn't ask for one. She turned on her heel and disappeared into the bedroom. The next morning, Lisa confronted me in the kitchen. "What the hell was that last night?" I shrugged, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "Exactly what you wanted. An open marriage, remember?" "That's not what I meant," she snapped. "Bringing them into our house? Into our bed? Oh, but sneaking around behind my back is fine." My voice was calm, almost too calm. Sleeping with Josh at his place, lying to my face, was that part of the rules too? Her mouth fell open, the color draining from her face. How did you?" "I'm not an idiot, Lisa." I leaned against the counter, my coffee untouched. "You wanted freedom, So did I guess we're both getting what we deserve? She didn't respond, just stood there, her hands trembling as she realized how far things had spiraled out of her control. Lisa's expression in the kitchen that morning was the kind of stunned silence I'd hoped for when I started playing my game. But instead of feeling triumphant, I felt hollow. Still, there was no time for reflection. The damage was done, and there was no turning back. After her kitchen breakdown, Lisa tried to act as if everything was fine. She didn't say a word about Josh, and I didn't bring up Emily or Kara. We spent the next week in a bizarre, polite limbo, like two strangers sharing a house rather than a married couple. It couldn't last. On Thursday night, Lisa finally broke the silence. "Can we talk?" she asked, standing awkwardly in the living room doorway as I watched TV. I muted the screen and looked at her. "Go ahead," she hesitated, twisting her hands the way she always did when she was nervous. Whatever's happening between us, it's not working. I feel like we've lost ourselves, Ben. I laughed bitterly. You feel like we've lost ourselves? That's rich. Coming from you. Her eyes flashed with anger. You're not blameless in this. You brought strangers into our home. I stood up, the anger I'd been bottling finally spilling over. And you brought Josh into our marriage. Don't stand there and pretend you're the victim. Her face paled and she stammered. How long have you known? Long enough, I said. Long enough to see through all your lies, all your excuses. And you know what? I was fine letting you think you were pulling one over on me. But then I realized something. If you want to destroy this marriage, I'm not going to sit here like some idiot, letting you do it alone. I'm going to burn it to the ground with you. Her jaw dropped. You planned this. I shrugged. Revenge, Lisa. You wanted an open marriage. I gave you one. You don't like how it feels. Too bad. For a moment, she just stood there stunned. Then she turned on her heel and stormed out of the house. I didn't follow. The next day, Lisa called out sick from work. She stayed in the bedroom all day, and I let her. By evening, though, I knew she wasn't going to stay quiet for long. Sure enough, around 8 p.m., she marched into the living room, her eyes red and her face blotchy. "We need to fix this," she said, her voice cracking. "Fix what?" I asked, not bothering to look up from my phone. "The marriage you blew up. The trust you destroyed. You can't fix something when the foundation is gone, Lisa." "I didn't destroy it alone," she snapped. "You save it, I interrupted. You don't get to play the martyr here. You wanted freedom, and now you've got it. Enjoy it." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. The following week, everything came to a head. I hired a lawyer shortly after finding out about Josh, and now I was ready to pull the trigger. It started with Lisa coming home to a document sitting on the dining table. "What's this?" she asked, picking up the papers. "Divorce," I said flatly. Her face crumpled as she read through the pages. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." "This isn't fair," she protested. "We can fix this, Ben. We can go to counseling. We can—" "No, Lisa. We can't," I said, cutting her off. "You made your choice the moment you invited someone else into our marriage. You wanted out. This is me giving you what you wanted." Her tears started flowing freely then, but they didn't move me. She cried. She begged. She even tried to bring up memories of our early years together, but it was too late. I've been holding on to the wreckage of our marriage for months, but now I realized I was only hurting myself. She made her choices, and it was time for me to make mine. By the end of that week, Lisa had moved out. The divorce process was messy and dragged on for months, with Lisa trying to fight for a bigger share of assets despite the ironclad prenup we'd signed years ago. She kept saying she made a mistake, that she wanted to come back and work things out. I stopped listening. I sold the house, cut ties with mutual friends, and started over. But starting over wasn't easy. For all the satisfaction I felt in taking control of the situation, I was left with the heavy reality of what my life had become. Lisa moved in with Josh, but their honeymoon phase didn't last long. I heard through the grapevine that she left him after a few months when she found out he was seeing someone else on the side. As for me, I'm still picking up the pieces. Some days are good, some are not. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You can't rebuild a life when you're holding on to the ruins. So I'm letting go. Bit by bit, I'm letting go. Thank you for listening till the end. If you enjoyed the story, please give a heart in comment section and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories.